Good morning. Welcome to your Saturday morning, early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, America's kick-ass coach and psychologist, here with some words for us to ponder today and hopefully help us improve our communications with each other. So, man, windy out there, darn cold too. So, I'm refreshed and awake now. So we are going to, for today, go back to working on taking the war out of our words, the art of powerful non-defensive communication. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome, welcome. Good morning to, I'm guessing that might be Cindy. We'll see if she waves. By Sharon Ellison. Book is by Sharon Ellison. And we're just taking little chunks here and there, and some days I'll intersperse it with a card, etc. But I just think this is going to be so helpful for all of us. I'm already hearing from people that it is very helpful because we need help with our communication. Good morning to whomever else just popped on. Welcome, welcome. So there's Cindy waving. All right. Good morning. Good morning. In taken in little chunks, I think it can be much easier for us to hold on to the information and practice just a little bit at a time, moving the needle forward in terms of improved communication for those of us who speak English as first or second language, because English is a warlike language, and it's time for us to change that. So, the part we're going to be reading is on page 92 for those of you who have the book. Oh, good. Carolyn got her book. Awesome. Page 92. Hopefully they're all laid out the same. We'll see. And it's called The Disarming Effect. People often comment on the disarming effect that a non-defensive question has. Apparently, the openness and sincerity of the question enables the recipients to answer freely, without fear. So think about that. When we can ask a question in a non-defensive way, it's an invitation for the other person to really look within and answer honestly and completely so that we can move forward with communication. And so they disarm, laying down their own defensiveness because they no longer need it within a safe environment. Recall that George's first reaction. Now, George was the mechanic from whom she bought tires, who told her she didn't need to know information about the tires, and she initially took that to mean that he thought as a woman she didn't need to know. Good morning, Diane. Welcome, welcome. But when she was able to control her own reaction, her anger, good morning, Beth, then she was able to ask him a question. Do you think I don't need to know about my tires? And he was able to respond, no, I've taught classes in the past of mechanics, and they always basically questioned his knowledge, and he thought she was doing the same thing, which wasn't it at all. But so recall that George's first reaction when I asked him if I thought I had no need to know about the tires I was buying was to stop and look blank for a moment. This is common, just before people drop their defensiveness. The subsequent transformation is often shocking. Sid, who had been practicing non-defensive communication for several years, said to me once, when a guy drops his defensiveness, it's as though he doesn't have to take the time to take off his suit of armor. It disappears instantly, the way the sun can evaporate a wisp of cloud. I thought that was a pretty cool description. As George answered my question, his entire demeanor and attitude changed. He was open, happy, almost exuberant. He literally followed me out of the store and down the sidewalk, giving me his business card, shaking my hand, smiling broadly, and saying, please, if you ever need tires again, come back. As often as I see this kind of transformation, I am still amazed. We are often accustomed to thinking that people will continue to be true to our past experience with them. In other words, they're going to continue to be obstinate or sarcastic or whatever it was that they were. But it falls away. It falls away. This reflects our tendency to see a person's defensiveness as personality. So we see it as more solid and long-lasting than what it really is, which we all carry with us throughout life and prevents us from recognizing that people have the capacity for instantaneous change. Sometimes a single non-defensive question can be effectively used in situations that recur again and again. Min, a Vietnam refugee who had come to the United States and gone to work for a large urban university, described the first time she encountered an upset student who was swearing because of problems with a loan application. She broke down in tears after she hung up the phone, thinking she must have caused the problem. After encountering a few more angry students, Min realized she hadn't done anything to cause their behavior. The next time a caller screamed and swore at her, she retorted, "Same to you," and hung up. But while she was asserting herself more, she was still not happy with her own reactions. And the level of anger and abuse she received continued to make many work days unpleasant. Chiming for anybody here? Makes a whole lot of sense. Okay, let me find my spot here. After Min took a PNDC workshop at her university, so that is, let me open it up, Powerful Non-Defensive Communication. I love all the acronyms, right? The next time someone called and started shouting at her, she asked, honestly, "Are you angry at me for some reason, or are you upset about your financial aid?" She reported that the person calmed down immediately and replied, "I'm not angry at you. I'm just upset because I won't be able to go to school this term if I don't get my financial aid worked out." Can you think about that job? That would be one difficult job, being the person who answers the phone when someone's financial aid gets messed up. The student went on to talk to her very respectfully. Whenever Min asked this question or some variation of it, so as we're going through these, one of the things I was going to suggest before I started, but I thought of it now, have paper and pencil handy. As I say some of the words that she's using in the book from her examples, if you go, "Ooh, I could use that with so-and-so," or "those words would work for this," write them down. Write them down so that you begin to have a log of options for when you encounter one of those situations in your own life. Okay, so in this case, it was, "Are you angry at me for some reason, or are you just upset about," and then you fill in whatever, and I might take out the word "just." "Are you angry at me for some reason, or are you upset about blank?" And you ask it as curiously as possible. All right, neutrally and curiously, innocently. Okay? Whenever Min asked this question or some variation of it, the caller usually stopped treating Min as an adversary, a cog in the bureaucratic machine, and shifted to seeing Min as an ally and stopped dumping anger on her. I remember I had an administrative assistant at one point many, many years ago. And obviously, I owned a mental health clinic. People had issues. They were struggling, right? So sometimes we'd have someone come in who was not a happy person. I remember one person who came in, slammed her hands on the desk and said, "Who do I need to sue around here?" So this administrative assistant was incredibly good at this disarming thing. And sometimes it would be a question, and sometimes it would be more of a statement. So it might be, "Well, how can I help you? Let's see what we can do to solve this." Or, "What's the issue that we need to work on today? We need to work on today." She had a great way of being able, and I saw that disarming thing. They'd go, "Ha." They knew she was going to work with them, help them figure it out, and they settled down. Let's see. Any of us who work with the public can use non-defensive questions to give people an opportunity to disarm and work with us toward constructive solutions. I see the applicability of this all over the place in terms of the intentional community stuff, in terms of family dynamics, all kinds of stuff. Non-defensive questions can even be disarming in heated debates over political issues. And this book actually precedes most of the shit that's hit the fan. So one woman told of an incident that occurred when she was handing out information on a controversial ballot initiative. A man had walked up and began to argue angrily. He leaned over the booth and waved his arms, looking as though he might actually assault her. At first she felt panicky and thought she might have to call security, but after a few deep breaths, she looked at him as gently as she could and asked in a mild tone, "Do you think we will be able to agree on this?" She said he looked as if all the air had been let out of him. He sighed deeply, shrugged, said softly, "No, I guess not," turned and walked off. She was stunned. A sincere question from a parent can stop an ongoing power struggle with children and teens. Do you remember those years? I remember those years. The head swiveled, the pea soup came out. It was not fun. As Corey began to practice non-defensive communication, she sat down with Beth, who's her daughter, when she was not seeking Beth's help with housework, and asked her some genuine questions. Do you believe I should do all of the housework? When you say I am being unfair to ask you to help, do you say it because you are angry or because you think you should not have to help at all? Do you have any desire to help me around the house? So she's querying, she's asking questions. And again, you've got to be cautious with how you put that out there because it can have an edge and become that interrogation thing we talked about earlier. Previously, any question Corey had asked Beth had been designed to coerce Beth into helping, right? In response to genuine questions, Beth, underneath her defensiveness, showed more concern and desire to share the work than Corey would have ever imagined. While it was still an uphill trek, this conversation laid the groundwork for some significant changes in how they resolved issues about housework. Children and teens can also learn to ask non-defensive questions to diffuse potential conflicts. A high school student had been murdered in a fight that ensued after someone had made an insulting remark about his mother. After a class in non-defensive communication, another student reported how he had handled a similar situation by asking, "Why are you saying that about my mom?" The other boy shrugged and said, "I don't know. I just wanted to piss you off, I guess," and walked away. Some of the most startling success stories I hear involve issues such as sexual harassment. Nancy, a young woman who had just graduated from college, was hired by a large corporation. She had not been employed very long before her immediate supervisor, Frank, began putting his arm around her and calling her honey and sweetie. Nancy said nothing because she didn't want to appear uptight and she needed the job. Yet she was surprised by such treatment in a time of so much awareness about sexual harassment, not to mention its legal consequences. One day, Frank grabbed her bottom as she bent over to pick up a box. That evening, traumatized, she called her mother, who helped Nancy figure out a non-defensive question to pose to her supervisor. The next day, Nancy privately asked Frank, "Do you believe that I wanted you to touch me in that way?" He paused and then replied, "No, I don't think you did. I can see I have humiliated you and I will never do it again." Posing a genuinely curious question in such situations can be exceedingly difficult because we feel violated and betrayed. Yet Frank's response is a testament to the power of a question to create trust and resolve a potentially hazardous issue. So we'll stop there for today. Again, I know most of you are probably thinking, okay, how do I get my emotions in check enough to be able to ask the question? So I'm going to throw out a couple of things here that I think would be helpful. One thing is, don't feel like you absolutely have to respond immediately, especially if it's family or people you work with. You're going to see them again. You'll have another opportunity. So like Nancy just did right there, she took the time out overnight to talk to her mom and figure out what she was going to say and then come back to it. I think too often we feel like we're going to miss the opportunity. I don't think so. We can always reference back to it. So I can say, yesterday when we had that little altercation, I have a question about that, and pose your question. Remember when we were talking about X? Pose your question. You can bring it back up and get some resolution rather than, I'm going to wait till the next time it happens and then I'll address it. No, bring it up again. If you're thinking about it, if it's bothering you, bring it up. Oh, good. Yes, Carolyn said she used a non-defensive question yesterday in a discussion that was going in the wrong direction. Fabulous. And think about that. Even one of us making a change in this creates a whole new ripple. It's like throwing a different stone in the water. The ripple is going to be different. So don't worry either about, well, the situation has been like this for so long and we have so much water under the bridge, so much damage that's been done, it doesn't pay. No, take a whack at it. You have nothing to lose, right? When you shift your gears to asking the question, so ones that typically push people's buttons are things where we feel like we're being discounted, we feel like we're being written off because of some aspect of us. I'm a woman, I'm old, I'm a mom, I'm, whatever it is that, you're not relevant anymore kind of stuff. Those things, when they push your buttons, take that step back. And I want to throw in my little piece here about soulmates. To me, a soulmate isn't that person who finishes our sentence and gazes adoringly at us. To me, a soulmate is that person who may be an irritant, may push our buttons, etc., because they are giving us such a huge gift, the opportunity to see something in us that isn't healed. This is a two-way street, right? So if someone says something nasty and we react, we both played a part in this thing, right? If someone says something nasty and we have healed ourselves to the point where that doesn't push a button anymore, or if it does push a button, we can take that proverbial step back and ask the question, did you mean to hurt my feelings with that comment? Did you mean to put me down with that comment? And the ones that we read today, many of them, the person did shift gears. There will be the people who don't shift gears. They stay with it. Yeah, I intended to put you down. Like the one kid, I just wanted to see if I could piss you off. Then you can go from there. Then you can take another step. You can decide, what do you want to say, etc. And we'll be getting to parts in the book where she talks about how do you state your position without expecting them to either hear it or respond appropriately. You're just kind of putting your position out there. So your mission for today, should you choose to accept it, is jot down some words, some of the things that are potential responses, those neutral responses. Let's start, maybe you want to do a 3x5 card and just list some of the ways that you can respond in a more neutral way. Sometimes it's easier to begin practicing some of this on the phone for a couple of reasons. One is, yes, you do need to buy this book, Vivian. It's an awesome book, very awesome book, and might be very helpful in your circumstance. I know it's helpful in mine. It's been very helpful in mine. And the person that I've been practicing with the most, she pretty much does make the changes. She will catch it and respond more appropriately. And I know that it's coming out of her own level of angst. But still, it pokes my buttons, right? It's a family member. Of course it pokes my buttons because we've had 60 plus years of poking each other's buttons. So now we have the opportunity to practice doing something different. And it's working really well. So I'm quite excited about that. But just taking the time to create a list of the things that you want to begin practicing saying and creating your ritual for moving into that non-defensive, curious, open, innocent place from which the questions need to come. So for me, taking a breath is a good part of the ritual. Let my shoulders down. Maybe smile, because I know, here we are. Here's my opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to practice now. Okay? So that's what I'd like you working on today, is coming up with some of the words that you're going to use in these circumstances when they present themselves. And you can begin to play out little scenarios in your mind and how you will take that energetic step back to be able to respond in this way. Powerful, non-defensive communication. All right, we'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Let's get some practice under our belts. Bye-bye.